Anyway, bless y'all. Appreciate y'all being with me tonight for this edition of Blog Talk Radio. Hope everybody's encouraged, doing well. Now that we got through these problems, hope the clarity. I hope you can hear me good enough. Well, I wish I didn't have to hold this thing though. Wonder if we had a mic cord go bad. Don't know. Oh well. Anyway, tonight's topic is going to be on. I'm going to have to start all over again, try to get my head together on this. Yes, tonight, is it clean? Okay. That was the title I gave to Brother Shane when he asked me yesterday, but that's not exactly what we're talking about tonight. We're going to focus on the internal organs of animals. And I have to give you a little bit of a brief history of this, simply because to get a bit more clarity of how I came to this subject tonight. All right, on the Sons of Jacob, those that you are on Marco Polo, Pastor Dowell did a Marco Polo video a couple weeks ago to the Sons of Jacob on a particular topic. Now, the focus of the topic had to do with, be careful about who's laying hands on you, certain type of healing. But towards the end of the video, he spoke a little bit about these doctrines that come in. And one of them that we used to deal with on the community years ago, at the beginning, was the internal organs. Are they lawful? Are they clean to eat? Are they acceptable in the sight of the Most High? And in the early years of community, we didn't have the time to really concentrate on the smaller things like that, or things that weren't so weighty in the law at that time. We were trying to keep the things that had to do more with salvation and holiness and get rid of sin and repentance, that type of thing. And so there was an incident that had happened that rather than deal with it at the time, we just said we're going to table it. And as a community, we all said, yes, sir, that's what we're going to do until we actually get around to looking. And we did the same thing with ducks and geese, too, at an early stage. And it was just something that we would eventually get to. But for the right now, as a unit, as a community, we're just going to go like, it's going to be on hold until we actually get around to thoroughly looking into it. So when Pastor did the Marco Polo video to the brothers on Sons of Jacob, and probably a great deal of people heard it because he had said that this video needs to be passed around. Well, again, he mentioned the internal organs at the end of the video, and that the stance at the ministry was that we don't eat internal organs. Well, actually, him and I had a discussion probably 2 years prior to that, and we were butchering chickens, and during the process of butchering chickens, Pastor and I had a conversation about internal organs, and he asked me my thoughts about it. I said, well, from all my studies and everything that I understand about it, it's perfectly acceptable. So he said, hey, that's good enough. We're just going to go with that. And, during time, it's been a couple of years, and how things are, they just slip your mind and whatever. So anyway, I had gone to Pastor after the video and said, Pastor, you may have not remembered that we have already spoke about this. I said, I'll tell you what, Elder, this is what I need you to do. Go ahead and prep a newsletter, and let the saints know we're going to publish the newsletter so everybody can read. We can all be on one accord and one agreement. I said, great, that's fine. And then, in fact, in the course of the newsletter, I asked him if it was okay if I was able to do a blog talk presentation on it. And he said, yeah, that's fine. That's great. Do the blog talk. And then after blog talk, we'll have probably Brother Steve or a few other people do the proof editing, and then we're going to go ahead and put it out as a newsletter. So that's what we're bringing you tonight. So to make a really long story shorter than it has to be, or rather than being longer, that's where we are tonight. So the topic tonight is, it's going to be a full 2 hours. Probably I'm going to have to really condense it now because we got to such a late start. But the topic tonight, of course, the internal organs, and we're going to, I hope, successfully show Israel that it was totally acceptable and lawful in the sight of the Most High. So wish I could say more, but I really want to get started to try to get through this. I have a lot of information. Okay, we still got low audio. Let me go up a little bit. Okay, I mean, is that better? Let me know. Y'all going to have to let me know how I'm coming through. I'm on a different mic, and everything just all changed. All right, glory to the King. All right, we're just going to go with it. Anyway, we're going to start in I'm going to read this intro, and then we're going to get on with it. The focus and goal of this newsletter or this study tonight is to prove that the consumption of the internal organs of biblically clean animals is lawful and accepted of Yahweh. Though internal organs may not suit the palate and taste of every Israelite, nonetheless, this does not make eating internal organs unlawful, prohibited, and restricted in the eye of the Elohim of Israel. All right, starting out, and again, thank you, Brother Ugly, for being diligent in posting up the scriptures and so forth, and the definitions for the people following the chat room to be able to see. All right, 1 Timothy chapter 4, 1 through 5. 1 Timothy 4, 1 through 5. All right, thank you all for the radio check. I guess we're having a good signal now. I have no idea. When I take a break, I'm going to try and figure out why this mic is not working. I'm going to switch cords. Anyway, here we go. 1 Timothy 4, verse 1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, or them spirits that are going to try to dissuade many from what is actually the real truth in the Most High. Speaking lies and hypocrisy, meaning doing one thing but then putting restraints on people on the other side of their neck, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from meats, which Yahweh hath created to be received in the thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. So the context of what we're dealing with is forbidding to marry, two aspects of these seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, two key points. One is forbidding to marry, the other has to do with food, to abstain from meats, which Yahweh hath created to receive with thanksgiving them which believe and know the truth. For every creature of Yahweh is good. Of course, them are clean creatures, the ones that are dietarily proven and written about to be clean for Israel, and nothing to be refused if it be received with thanksgiving, for it is sanctified by the word of Yahweh in prayer. All right, the word abstain, this is in the Strong's. It's the Greek 567, and a big old long Greek word, the Greek 567. It means to hold oneself off, that is to refrain or abstain. So to refrain from meat. So there was somebody out there preaching lies and actually bringing these false doctrines that we are to not be allowed to refrain from certain meats and to hold oneself off of, reserve yourself from eating certain meats, which Yahweh had created to be received, and of them which believe and actually know the truth. All right. So that was the word abstain, and the word meats is the Greek 1033, which is broma, again in the Strong's. And it's from the base of the Greek 977. It means food, literally or figuratively, especially, this is the key, ceremonial articles allowed or forbidden by Israelite law. So we're dealing with something that people were abstaining from, or they were refraining from, or holding themselves off or back from because of false doctrines and doctrines of devils. And these were these meats that were especially used in ceremonial articles allowed or forbidden by the Israelite law. And we're going to see that a lot of the great deal of these things were allowed. As would be expected, the Apostle Paul knew perfectly well that what were his intentions and directions for young Timothy. These 5 verses define for us, and Timothy, of course, that there would be those persons who, coming in the influence of demonic spirits, would forbid things having to do with marriage and those things which were to be eaten. And again, I'm not going to read the whole thing. These are just my notes. But I think you already get the crux of what I'm talking about, is the fact there's people out there right way back in down the line bringing these false doctrines, and by seducing spirits, trying to convince people that this was not acceptable. You can't have this part of this, meats being food, and specifically meat, okay? Things that were designated for the ceremonial laws. If that was meaning because they were dedicated for the service of the of the sacrificial offering, and they were now removed. But the fact is, somebody's up there putting their nose into the stuff, trying to change people's minds. All right, it appears by my own personal past and present research that the best way to approach the subject is to define as best as Yah's word allows us, is to isolate and demonstrate what things cannot be consumed. So we're going to start out with biblically, without no doubt, what cannot be consumed, thereby leaving no doubt what Yah expressly forbids and prohibits his people from including in their dietary intake. So there will be no question going forward what Yah said, ain't no way, Hosea, that you're going to end up having the ability to consume. All right, Leviticus chapter 7, verse 23. Leviticus chapter 7, verse 23, and it's going to go through, let me see, 27. And forgive me if I go a little fast, but I have a lot of content. And we're definitely going to have to round corners since we started so late. All righty. Verse 23. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, you shall eat no manner of fat of ox or of sheep or of goats. So you have a list of prohibited animals. These animals that you cannot eat the fat of is covering these four-footed animals, right? My notes. And does not cover birds or fish. So the target right now is against those of the family of the oxen or of the sheep or the goats. So we got of the herds and of the flocks. All right, brown, briver, bigs, the definition, the word manner. So you shall eat no manner, and the word manner means all or the whole. It's, the Hebrew 3605. Excuse me, Brother Ugly. I've really got to get this mic fixed. This thing is just, help me, Jesus. All right, the Hebrew 3605, it means the all or the whole. Any, every, each, every, anything, totality. So that's in the Brown Driver Briggs. The word manner in Hebrew 3605, and it basically says, you shall eat nothing in totality of any fat, of any ox or sheep or goat, of the whole, meaning the entirety of the animal. It is quite clear that Yahweh demands, as concerning the consumption of fat, that nothing, anything, the whole of the animal in totality is forbidden. In verse 24, and the fat of the beast that dieth of itself, and the fat of that which is torn with beast, may be used in any other use. But you shall in no wise eat of it. So it's acceptable. Of course, this animal can't be used for a ceremonial offering anymore because it's definitely got a blemish, right? It either died or it's torn to beast. It's no use anymore. But here, scripturally, you can still take the fat that was meant for Yah, and you can actually use it for yourself, except to eat it. Verse 25, for whosoever eateth the fat of the beast, of which men offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh, even that soul eateth it shall be cut off from his people. So right away you can see the solid prohibition against eating fat, especially having to do with these animals that were listed in verse 23, being the ox, the sheep, or the goat. Yah makes it quite clear which ones are prohibited. And we're going to get to the reason why. And the word beast is the Hebrew 929. I think we need to spell it out for whosoever eateth the fat of the beast to make it pretty conclusive what we're talking about. From an unused, the Hebrew 929, from the unused root, probably meaning to be mute, properly a dumb beast, especially any large quadruped or animal, often colloquially beast or cattle. So we're dealing with cattle, the herds and the flocks, four-footed, ruminant, cud-chewing animals. Verse 26, moreover, you shall eat no manner, or you shall eat nothing, the whole of anything, the all of anything of blood, whether it be of the fowl or the beast in all of your dwellings. So we're going from the fat just of the four-footed beast using ceremonial sacrifices. All of a sudden, there's an inclusion of fowls. The fowls wasn't included in the fat, but now it's included in the blood. So anybody doing such, they're going to be cut off from the people, from Israel. Whether it be a fowl or beast in any of your dwellings, so there's no exceptions. You can't even do it at home. It's quite clear. You can't do it at home, period. Whatsoever soul it be that eateth of any manner of blood, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. So quite clear, Yahweh was pretty adamant in the fact that this is the stuff that you're not allowed to partake in. Also, so we got the fats and the bloods. That's what we're talking about, those things which were prohibited. And I think that pretty much makes it exclusive. There's more to it than that. I'm going to try to condense this, but he was pretty adamant about, again, what was allowable and what wasn't. And when it comes to the fat and the blood, it's pretty exclusive. All right, we're going to hit that again later, but we're just making a little bit of a foundation. All right, we're going to talk about the perpetual commandment that came to the priesthood. Though the priesthood and the sacrificial laws have been done away with, it still appears that the fat portion and the blood will be held as sacred, as it was declared as being perpetual in Leviticus 3 and verse 17. Yah, knowing full well that one day there would be no longer necessary the sacrifices of animals for the remissions of sins. And we're going to cover that. Leviticus chapter 3, verses 12 through 17. Leviticus 3, 12 through 17. And if his offering be a goat, then he shall offer it before the Most High. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of it, talking about the priest, and shall kill it before the tabernacle of the congregation. The sons of Aaron shall sprinkle the blood thereof upon the altar round about. And he shall offer thereof his offering, even an offering made by fire unto Yahweh, the fat that covereth the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards. So there's this offering being made to the Most High, and explaining what part of that offering is: the fat that covereth the inwards, and the fat that is upon the inwards. So the stuff that's in the cavity, the body cavity. And the two kidneys and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks and the caul and above the liver with the kidneys, it shall he take away. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar as a food of the offering made by fire for a sweet savor. All the fat, remember, we're still concentrating on the absolute prohibition of the blood and the fats. We want to knock that stuff out of the way so there's no question ever in the mind of an Israelite what, according to the Most High, is never to be consumed by his people when it comes to animals. All the fat is the Most High's. It's Yahweh's. All the fat is the Most High's. It shall be a perpetual statute for your generations throughout all your dwellings, that you eat neither fat nor blood. And again, we made definition earlier of what constitutes what animal carrying the fat and what animals with the blood. So, but anyway, it says in verse 17, it's a perpetual statute. Yah, knowing fully that at one time the ceremonial laws would be done away with, but yet he was so particular about the fat and the blood that he made it a perpetual thing, even beyond the scope of the ceremonial offerings that we no longer have to do. Brown Driver Briggs, definition, perpetual, the Hebrew 5769, olam, and simply means forever. This is the Brown Driver Briggs, yes. Antiquity, long duration, forever, everlasting, evermore, perpetual, old, ancient world, always, continuous existence, indefinite or ending future, meaning that it's going on to perpetuity. That Yah really means business about this fat and blood. Once again, it appears that the fat of beasts which were not to be consumed at all and forever was the fat of those beasts mandated and commanded by Yahweh in the use of Levitical ceremonial sacrifice. Remember, way back when we first started reading in Leviticus, that Yah designated a certain group of animals, either the herds of the flocks, the oxen, the sheep, and the goats, that no fat was to be consumed of. So he made that pretty clear through perpetuity. The Most High knew perfectly well that there would be a day when the sacrifice of animals would no longer be necessary, which we talked about, and the sacrificial offerings would come to a close with the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach. So I'm going to give you a list of four-legged animals used in the sacrifices by the priesthood so we can get clarity and definition that how the word speaks about these domesticated animals used in the ceremonial sacrificial offerings, the ones that we are supposed to abstain from eating the fat of. Leviticus chapter 1, verses 1 through, 1 and 2, and then verse 10. Leviticus 1, chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, and then verse 10. And the Most High called Moshe and spake unto him out of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, If any man of you bring an offering unto the Most High, you shall bring your offering of cattle, even of your herd, and of the flock. So he's describing, making it definitive, where these offerings are going to come from. That's the cattle of your herd or of the flock. And he's going to go on to define even more in verse 10. And if his offering be of the flocks, namely of the sheep and of the goats, for a burnt sacrifice, he shall bring it a male without blemish. And the word cattle, which is very important that I think we get this across so it doesn't leave any room for self-justification, what can be consumed as far as fat. The word cattle is the Hebrew 929 in the Brown Driver Briggs. And it means beast, cattle, or animal. Beast, collective of all animals. Cattle or livestock. Obviously, in this context, it is not collective of all animals. It can't be because it gives case specific what it's talking about. Wild beast. All right, the word cattle is used generically to include bovines, sheep, and goats, which are all animals that herd together or in a flock situation. All right, Exodus chapter 24, verse 4 and 5. Exodus 24, verse 4 and 5. All right, we're still dealing with the fat and the blood and the perpetual commandment behind it and how important it is to not consume these things. Exodus 24, 4 through 5, and then Numbers 7, 15 through 17. And Moshe wrote all the words of the Most High, and rose up early in the morning, and builded an altar upon the hill, and 12 pillars, according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings, and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Most High. So they sacrificed peace offerings of oxen. Again, we're getting a list of the specific, case-specific cattle that were actually allowed to be used, four-legged animals, in the ceremonial sacrifices. And these are the ones that you do not ever eat the fat off for perpetuity, ever. That is the Most High's. The fat is Yahweh's. Numbers 7, 15 through 17. Okay, one young bullock. So we have oxen so far. We're making definitive terms. One young bullock, one ram, one lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, one kid of the goats for a sin offering. So all of them are going from mature animals down to young animals, as in case specific, the kid of the goats. So we're using a variety of ages here. So we're going through the whole spectrum of those that have the prohibition against eating the fat. And for the sacrifice of peace offerings, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 lambs of the first year. This was the offering of Nashon, of the son of Abinadab. All right, Leviticus chapter 22, verses 17 and 19. Forgive me if I'm going very fast, okay? I'm going to try and slow down, but I don't want to go another 3 hours on another study. I really don't. But we'll try to get the point across. And the Most High spake unto Moshe, saying, again, pretty much every time we start this, especially in Leviticus, is that it's Yahweh given direction and commandment to Moshe to give to the people, Speak unto Aaron and to his sons and to all the children of Israel. So everybody's including in this, the priesthood and everybody. And say unto them, whatsoever he be of the house of Israel or of the strangers in Israel that will offer his oblations for all the vows. So we're covering everybody. Nobody's left to chance. Everybody's being accounted for by this verse. And for all his freewill offerings, which they will offer unto the Most High for a burnt offering. You shall offer at your own will a male without blemish of the bevies of the sheep or of the goats. And it's about, all right, beeves, that's the way I pronounce it, beeves. So that's Elder Becker's Minnesota pronunciation of this word beeves, as in verse 19. And the word beeves is going to cover the spectrum of the cattle. It's the Strong's. In the Strong's, beeves is 1241. It's the Hebrew word bakar. It's from the Hebrew 1239. A beeve, or animal of the ox kind of either gender, as used for plowing. Collectively, a herd, beeve, bull, calf, cow, great, heifer, herd. So it's not just to one specific breed of cattle. It covers the whole of what was being directed. The command was being directed about at that time. And Numbers 19, chapter 1, 19, Numbers chapter 19, verses 1 and 2. Help me, Jesus. Numbers chapter 19, verses 1 and 2. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and unto Aaron, saying, This is the ordinance of the law which Yahweh hath commanded, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that you bring thee a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came a yoke. So it was never saddled, it was never put into the service of farming or drawing a cart or whatever, and it was without spot or blemish. But the fact is, it's a red heifer, showing that we have not only the aged male cattle, we also have in the spectrum, we have the young of the herds and the flocks, and we also have the female of the herds and the flocks. So there's no discrepancy. Point blank, any oxen or of the bovines, cows as we know them today, cattle, which are many diverse kinds, or of the sheep or of the goats, the fat shall not be consumed, and of course no blood. And I put that in there simply because to show that no Israelite should consider the fat of any bovines off limits, because they are not all case specific to oxen or its kind, meaning beeves. So you're not going to say, well, because it's a buffalo or something that I can go ahead and consume the fat. No, if it's from that family, the answer is no. It's a perpetual commandment that we do not consume the fat of them particular beast. Only the ones listed in the ceremonial sacrifices. All right, let's cover the blood prohibition, then I'm going to try and speed things up here. All right, when speaking of the blood that is not to be consumed, the law goes on to designate both birds / fowl and beasts. So it's covering two categories of dietary clean animals, fowl and beast, meaning all clean animals and not just that which is commonly commanded and used in sacrificial offerings. So we're going to go beyond what was prescribed and commanded for sacrificial ceremonies, and go beyond that and show that Yah even covered them when it comes to the blood. Leviticus chapter 7, verse 26 and 27. Leviticus 7, 26 and 27. Boy, I sure hope you all got your pen and paper. It was not my intention to have to cover this much ground tonight, but we got started late again. My apologies, but I really didn't feel like breaking this down into two parts. I don't know why I'm getting away from that. Maybe I should get back into it, but I guess that's why the beauty of being able to go back and listen over and over and over. Verse 26, moreover, you shall eat no manner, period, no manner, nothing, anything. Remember the word behind, the definition behind the word, the Hebrew word, for manner, the English word manner, the Hebrew definition. Nothing, anything at all, period, point blank, nada. Moreover, you shall eat no manner of blood, whether it be of fowl or of beast, in any of your dwellings. So Yah is covering the gamut of everything. He didn't specify anything for the ceremonies. He just said, of all these, of it be a fowl or a beast, meaning birds or a beast or four-legged animals, that sort of thing. Whatsoever soul it be that eateth any manner of blood, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. Leviticus chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. Leviticus 1, chapter 14 and 15. And if the burnt sacrifice for his offering to the Most High be of fowls, so we're talking about birds here, as we know, like pigeons were counted as part of the sacrificial accepted offering, doves, and that sort of thing. But we're talking about everything. Whatsoever and if the burnt sacrifice for his offering of Yahweh be of fowls, then he shall bring his offering of turtle doves and young pigeons. There's the description, the two types of animals. And the priest shall bring it unto the altar and wring off his head and burn it on the altar. The blood thereof shall be wrung out at the side of the altar. Again, these are being used in the ceremony sacrifices, but yet in chapter 7 Leviticus, we see that it covers the gamut of everything. He's not being just targeting the ceremony. But here you can see it again reiterated even during the ceremonies of the offerings. Genesis chapter 9, verses 1 through 4. Genesis 9, 1 through 4. And the Most High blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. And of course, that is talking about the clean beast. It shall be acceptable for you to eat. But the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, you shall not eat. So between verses 3 and 4, we can see that it's covering every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Every moving thing is acceptable for you if it's clean. But the prohibition forever is that you're not going to eat the blood thereof. You shall not eat of it. And this was long before the Torah was ever put in its written form and given to Moshe. Yah even established it way back then. You shall not eat of the blood, period. Doesn't matter what it is. He covers it. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. So that's covering the animals on the four legs. It's covering everything in the dietary laws, the fish of the waters. It's covering the birds of the air and the we'll leave it at that, all right? Because I don't know we're going to get to that too, all right? But he said every moving thing. And in fact, in verse 2 is the beast. He talks about the beast, the fowl, and the fishes. He doesn't mention anything about insects. So he's covering them three categories. Acts chapter 15, verses 19 through 21. Acts chapter 15, verses 19 through 21. And all we're doing is reiterating again the prohibition against the fat that cannot ever be eaten for perpetuity in certain animals, and the blood, which is carte blanche over all the species of the fowls or the fish or the animals, four-legged clean animals. Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them from which among the Gentiles are turned to Yah, but that we write unto them that they abstain from the pollution of idols and from fornication and from things strangled and from blood. It was so important that even at the council that was brought up to Jerusalem, which even started out concerning circumcision, if you read Acts chapter 15:21, this is the four things that the apostles, upon their meeting, prescribed, and one of them, abstaining from blood. They knew how important, it's so important, the fact that they ranked it right up there, right at the top. In fact, two of the categories, things strangling from blood, both had to do with dietary, about eating. For Moses of old time in every city then preach him being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. So I think that I hopefully has successfully shown and proven, even skipping pretty fast over the stuff, that Yah is particular about when it comes to the blood and comes to the fat. The blood across the board is completely prohibited. There are no exceptions. The fat, we're going to show that it is designated, it's specific to the animals that were used and mandated for ceremonial sacrificial offerings. And they are forever not to be. The fat is the most high. So when you go to, Texas Longhorn Steakhouse, you can get a big old ribeye. If there's fat on it, you can't eat it. If you get a lamb chop, no, not a chance. That belongs to you. So cut it off, set it off to the side. It is an offering to the Most High. What are the wild beasts? So we covered the beasts that had to do with the four-legged beasts. I'm talking about the ox, the rams, the sheep of the flocks, and the herds. So we're going to talk a little bit about wild beasts, just touching on it, then we're going to get a little bit more into it later. These following verses do not include wild, clean animals, but only domesticated animals used in ceremonial sacrifices. So we're going to read that in Leviticus chapter 7. Can I go back over that quickly? Leviticus 7:25 seems to aptly cover that verses 23 and 24, which we'll read, do indeed apply only to those beasts which are meant to be used for sacrifices. Are you serious? It's raining outside? What in the world? In addition, it seems highly unlikely that there would be wild beasts at all in one's dwelling, but it would seem probable likely there would be more domesticated beasts in one's dwelling, such as oxen, cattle, sheep, or goats, meaning that when we cover these verses here, you're going to see what I'm talking about. Normally I read the verses and write my notes, but this time I did it reversed. Again, going back to Leviticus chapter 7, verse 23 through, and we're going to go through 26, showing again that in nowhere ever is prescribed or it talks about wild animals. All right, speaking of the children of Israel, saying, you shall eat no manner of fat, or of ox, or of sheep, or of goats. We covered that already. And the fat of the beast that dive itself, and the fat of that which is torn of beasts, may be used in any other use, but you shall in no wise eat of it. For whosoever eateth the fat of the beast, of which men offer as an offering. So again, we're targeting case specific. Whatsoever eateth the fat of the beast of which men offer in an offering. Made by fire in the Most High, even that soul that eateth shall be cut off from the people. So Yah is categorizing which beast you shall not eat the fat of, and those that which were domesticated animals. Moreover, you shall eat no manner of blood, whether it be a fowl or beast or any of your dwellings. The context and entirety of the focus of these four verses is pointing directly to those four-footed beasts and fowls used in ceremonial sacrifices. There is no mention anywhere in the page of the scriptures that would indicate the inclusion or including of clean wild beast or clean birds, wild or tame, as being forbidden from eating their fat. But when it comes to the consumption of the blood of domesticated clean animals or domesticated clean fowl and wild clean animals and wild clean fowl, there is a complete prohibition. And to break it down, because my typing, I haven't had a lot of time to edit it, that, again, if it's for ceremonial sacrifices, them animals, no fat. But of the wild beast and wild clean birds, there's nothing in it at all that talks about them that you can't eat the fat of that. Also, I believe it is important to make mention of the fact about the clean animals. Yes, that one I can't. Yeah, that's a different one. I believe it is not necessary to continue on establishing that the fat and blood of select animals have special significance to the law and must not be consumed. This has been easily seen and proven and needs no further evaluation or evidence. I believe that has been made point blank proof enough that if you're an Israelite and you love Yah and obey His laws, you never consume any blood and of anything, and you do not consume the fat of the domesticated animals that were offered up in sacrifices, that being the oxen or the rams or the sheep or the goats, okay? All right, I believe it is not necessary, and with all that being said, we now will endeavor to present what is lawful and acceptable for an Israelite to consume in the sight of Elohim. Remember that the whole topic behind this is it lawful and acceptable in the eyes of the Most High to consume internal organs or the inner parts of animals? Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 through, this is a lot because it's talking about the first Passover, verses 1 through 11. Exodus chapter 12, 1 through 11. And the Most High spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months, it shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak unto the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man of a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, and a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it, according to the number of souls, every man according to his eating, shall you make your count for the lamb. So again, this is the commandment that Yah is telling through the mouth of Moses and Aaron, that you tell all the Israelites you need to go out and get a lamb. And this is his direction concerning getting this lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish. A male of the first year, you shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. So wherever it's at, it must not have any type of blemish. Diane, if you're listening to Blog Talk, go and shut the truck windows, please. Thank you. All right, the word blemish. It's very important that we understand the word blemish here, because it rings true for the entirety of the animal. Remember, we're talking about a Passover lamb, and these are the exact words of Yah to Moses, and this is the direction that he means business, of course, because of Yahweh. The word blemish, the Hebrew 8549 in the Strongs. 8549 in the Strongs, and it's from the 8552, also in the Hebrew definition, and we're going to cover both of them. So the Hebrew 8549 and the Hebrew 8552, both in the Strongs. The word blemish means without blemish, complete, full, perfect, sincerely, sound, without spot, undefiled, meaning complete, undefiled, and whole. And the Hebrew 8552, tamam, it means to complete in a good or bad sense, literally or figuratively, transitively or intransitively, accomplish, cease, to be clean, consume, have done, and a few other words. But the fact of what I'm trying to say is that this lamb that was commanded to be chosen, be absolutely, totally free of blemish. That means on the outwardly, what they could see, as knowing what a clean, unblemished lamb looked on the outwardly, but also anything that would have been done with sickness on the inside or disease. And you can see what is working on the inside projected on the outside. So if you have a lamb that's sick, even though he might look healthy on the outside, what if he's weak, he's tired, he doesn't want to get up? You ever seen farm animals that are sick from disease? They may look fine on the outward, but the inward is telling something going on the outside that they're not in the best of condition, and then they have, technically, they are blemished, if I'm making sense. So we're looking at the whole entirety of the animal. So this is going in for a sacrifice, a Passover offering, commanded for all the houses of Israel, and this lamb had to be perfectly healthy inside and without blemish inside and out. I hope I'm making sense. All right, Shuey, before we get on with this rest of this, I'm going to go ahead and take a break and give a ministry break. And I'm going to see if I can't actually deal with this microphone. So let's go ahead and cue it up now, and I really hope it plays. But bless you all. We'll be right back.
Shalom, this is Sister Wenda. I hope that all of you are enjoying the broadcast that you're listening to right now. We appreciate each and every last one of you, our faithful listeners and supporters of the Straitway Truth radio broadcast. We try to make sure that we do our due diligence and do our best to ensure that you have the best broadcast as well as the truth coming to you in the hour that we're living in right now. If you would like to help us in this endeavor, your offering will be greatly appreciated in the work of the ministry of the Most High Yah. Our mailing address for your gift, offering, or letter of support is Charles Dowell Jr., That's Charles Dowell Jr., and Dowell is spelled Dowell. 506 Ellington Drive. Ellington is spelled Ellington. P.O. Box 32, Lafayette, Tennessee, and Lafayette is spelled Lafayettee 37083. Again, our mailing address is Charles Dowell Jr., 506 Ellington Drive, P.O. Box 32, Lafayette, Tennessee, 37083. If you would like to contact us by way of phone, the country code is 1, area code 615-688-3025. That's 1-615-688-3025. You may leave a message there, and, be the Father's will, we will do whatever we can to try to return your message. It is our hope and our prayer that as you continue to listen to the Straitway Truth Ministry, and as you apply the teachings of this ministry, that you are finding peace and growth within you, your family, and life as well. Please tell others so that the truth may also have an impact and touch others' lives so that they may enjoy the benefits of the truth of Jesus Christ just like we all are. Shalom, the King is coming.
All right, glory to the King. Y'all going to have to give me a radio check again, please. Because what I did is I had to change microphones. Actually, not microphones, the cord was messed up. So if you can hear me, give me a radio check, please. I appreciate it. Radio check, radio check. Very low, it says. So I can be heard, huh? It's still very low? All right. All right, glory to the King. Is that better? I'm getting a 1 and a 2. Check, radio check. No audio, 2. Okay, I'm still getting it. All right, how about now? At least we're getting audio. Still low, huh? All right, still low. All right, glory to the King. How's that? This is a condenser mic. This thing should just be booming. Mike has got a 0, but Mike Mingman's got what in the world? Now I got a 0. What in the world is up with this crazy thing? All right, glory to the King. Glory. I do not understand what is up with this thing. All right, we're switching back. All right, I got a 10 now, so things are looking up. Hallelujah. Jeez. $10, but very low. All right. How's that? Is that better? I really think it's in this board. I don't know if it's in the board. I had to change chords, but anyway, we're going to get back on it. I hope that's okay. Elder Donnie says it's really good. Thank you, Elder. Appreciate that. Online is good. Oh my gosh, all these distractions. What in the world? Okay, real 10 now. So we got a lot of positives from the saints. Thank you for your feedback. Forgive the interruptions. I definitely couldn't get a job in radio, I'll tell you that. Anyway, glory to the King. All right. In spite of all the distractions, every other thing that has happened, I hope has made sense thus far. as we're talking about what's acceptable for, to the Most High, as far as eating the internal organs or the innards of any clean animal. All right, we were in Exodus chapter 12. Thank you all. Bless you, Brother Steve, Sister Linda, Brother Mike and England. Thank you, Brother Paul. Everybody, Brother Aaron, Sister Carrie, thank you. And everybody else. So we're in Exodus chapter 12. We're talking about the first Passover lamb. We've touched on the subject of the fact that it had to be complete without blemish, meaning completely whole, free of disease, and perfect on the outside, acceptable as a sacrifice. So continuing on verse 6. And you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood and strike it on 2 posts, and on the upper and doorposts of the house, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in the night, roast with fire. So Yahweh again is still telling Moses and Aaron, this is what you're going to tell the people. This is exactly how this Passover is to go down as far as the eating or the consuming of this lamb. And they shall eat it, the flesh in the night, roasted fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw. Case specific. This is exactly what I want you to do. Nor sodden it all with water, but you roast it with fire, his head with his legs, and the purtenance thereof. So you are talking about the lamb in its entirety, the whole entire lamb, right? This perfect lamb, or I guess as you can say, as we understand, whole and complete and free from blemish within and without. This whole thing, you're going to roast it in one intact, complete animal. And you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remaineth until the morning you shall burn with fire. So the idea was everybody in the household was going to take this lamb, which was put on the spit hole, roast with fire, and whatever you haven't eaten during the course of the night is to be burned in the fire. So you have, to be consumed. Nothing of it is to be left. And thus shall you eat it with your loins girded, with your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. You shall eat it in haste. It is Yahweh's Passover. The pertinence, the part that we're really concentrating on, the pertinence, which is the Hebrew word 7130, and this is in the Brown Driver Brig, the 7130 Hebrew definition of pertinence is the inner parts, the inward parts, the physical sense, all the other stuff, entrails of sacrificial animals in parentheses, so it's the entrails. So you're talking about the stuff that's inside that helps the animal to live and that you can't see, but that's what the pertinence is. This is the first recorded instance where Yahweh gives instruction concerning the preparation of a meal. It is the first time. He tells us exactly what he expects for Israel to do in the preparation of this Passover lamb. As we see in these verses, the Passover lamb was to be roast in its entirety, and the whole of it was to be eaten before morning rolled in. And in the event that any of the lamb was not eaten, it was to be burnt up with fire. Nowhere is it found that Yahweh instructed Israel to remove any of the inwards, the guts, parts of the Passover lamb, not in this account or any successive accounts written thereafter. The only thing that we can be sure of, now remember, Yahweh is giving direct instruction to Moshe and Aaron, this is what I want you to do. And he didn't say anywhere that I want you to gut the thing open and take the entrails off. No, he's saying it's the whole thing. The only thing that we can be sure of was not a part of the Passover, nothing of the Passover lamb was the blood which had been in the lamb, which would have been emptied from its body when it was slain. In my typos. Anyway, that when the lamb had its throat cut between the evenings of the 14th day, is that all the blood was drained out. Again, following the commandment of Yah, from way back in the time when we first read about it, when he gave it to Noah. No blood, period, no blood, zip. So the body was drained completely of the blood. However, as it has to do with the fat contained in the Passover lamb, as we already read, there was a prohibition against certain fats of animals that were used in offerings and sacrifices. So, how was it that this fat was going to be? It was never written about. We have no record, so we have to kind of go like, okay, what's going on here? However, as has to do with the fat contained in the Passover lamb, what was it allowed to be eaten or not eaten, and perhaps gathered and burnt the fire, as was this was technically a sacrifice and an offering to Yahweh, or did the roasting process eliminate the fat? I'm gonna have to skip through all my notes here because it would take too long. But what I'm trying to say is that by it roasting on the fire in a presentation almost like a burnt offering, the fat would have been cooked off the external part of the beast, right? Off the external part of the lamb. It would have actually dripped into the fire. As we've seen, if you ever been to a roast of anything where they roast an animal on a spit, the fat drips off and goes into the fire. And I would have to believe, I mean, I can't say this concretely, but the fat even back then wasn't eaten because this was part of the ceremony. Maybe it was something unwritten, I don't know. But the fact that I'm trying to get is that the whole of the animal was put on the spit, right? And it was commanded that everything from the nose all the way back to the end of the tail was to be roast, and it was all supposed to be consumed. And if it wasn't eaten, it was put and burnt, by before the morning got there. And it's can be a topic of another discussion. I don't know, but I know what is written. And actually, if you go back and look and do some research, there are some that say that the Jewish circles say that the lamb was gutted, the entrails were all taken out, and the fat was taken out of the entrails inside. I don't know, possibly when he gives all these specific directions, what you're supposed to be doing, he doesn't say anything about cutting the thing open, right? Just roast the whole thing with fire. But there are those that say that the entrails were taken out and they were completely washed. That means all the dung that was still in the intestines, everything was completely taken. They were packed back in, and then it was roasted. But these people were leaving in haste. So common sense tells me they didn't go through it. How long would it take to wash all them, make all these intestines clean? I don't know. Again, but the point I'm trying to get is that it was all there at one time, and that the whole thing was supposed to be eaten. So if internal organs were forbidden, then why wasn't it prescribed in the Passover lamb? All right, we're gonna step it up here. The priests do. This is what was due the priest according to the Torah. In Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 1 through 5. Deuteronomy 18, 1 through 5. If I am making sense, and I hope that I am. This was due to the priest as prescribed in the Torah. And the priests, the Levites, and all the tribe of Levi shall have no part nor inheritance with Israel. They shall eat of the offerings of Yahweh. So those things presented the Most High at the ceremony, sacrificial ceremonies in the tabernacle, or the place Yah chooses, of these offerings which are made by fire, offered as burnt offerings, and his inheritance. Verse 2, therefore shall they have no inheritance among their brethren, for the master of the Yahweh is their inheritance, as he has said unto them, or promised in the covenant to them. And this shall be the priest's due from the people, from them that offer a sacrifice, whether it be of ox or sheep. And they shall give unto the priest these three things. This is what is commanded in the law. They shall give the shoulder to the priesthood, the two cheeks, and the maw. Then we're going to cover what the maw is. And the first fruits also of thy corn and thy wine and thy vine oil, and the first of the fleece of thy sheep shalt thou give him. For Yahweh the Elohim have chosen him, meaning the Levite, the tribe of Levi, out of all the tribes to stand to minister in the name of the master, him and his sons forever. So the word ma, we're going to concentrate on the word ma and show also something that is actually looked at as something that people would eat, being the cheeks. All right, the word ma in the Strong's is the 6896. It is from the 6895, and it means the paunch as a cavity or a first stomach of ruminants or cud chewing animals. Those are in the Torah as prescribed as clean, and acceptable for ceremonial sacrifices. So right here in the law, in the Torah, is saying this is due to the priesthood, telling this belongs to them. So Yah is telling, I want my priesthood, those that are in service to me, to have these parts. They go to them. Yah is being case specific again. He's not leaving any room for any type of guessing. He said, I want them to have the shoulder and the two cheeks and the maw, or the stomachs, belong to the priesthood. Internal organs belong to the priest. And that was from the Strong. So we're going to look at the Braun Driver Briggs definition of the same Hebrew word, maw 86896. In Brown Drivers, it says that the stomach, the belly, the maw, and stomach of a sacrificial victim, belly of a woman. All right. And the word cheeks, as it has to do with the Strongs, again, is the Greek, or the Hebrew, the Hebrew 3895. Again, looking up the Hebrew definition of the English word cheeks, it means to be soft, the cheek from its fleshiness, hence the jaw bone, cheekbone, jaw bone. So what we have is a perfect example here of Yah actually commanding that these parts go to the priest, and they are internal organs. The stomach is an internal organ. So right there, I mean, it could be open and shut that this is allowable and acceptable, because Yah himself said that this is what's going to my priesthood. That, okay, so now people are going to say, well, legalistic. Well, that was just for the priest. Well, these were Israelites, okay? So the prior three verses were given to Moshe as an ordinance due and for the priesthood, and concerning which part of the sacrificial animals the priests were allowed to make use of for their own selves in the consumption. I strongly believe that this to be the case, that these parts were those parts which are offerings committed to Yahweh. So I kind of skipped around here, but these parts that were prescribed for the priests were also part of the sacrificial ceremonial offering that came, and they came from that Yah's portion given to the priest. That's how important it was. All right, I needed to share this because oftentimes when I'm doing studies, I'll actually look at Brother Raymond in Sweden. I'll send him a Marco Polo video and say, Brother Raymond, can you do me a favor? Because the man is really sound in Aramaic. He studied it for a great length of time, and it's a sister language of the Hebrew. And Brother Raymond is very fluent in Aramaic, and he does a very brilliant job. If you listen to his Hosea studies that he's been putting out, he really breaks down words in Aramaic. So I asked him, would you please do me a favor and go back and look up in these verses for me the Aramaic understanding behind the words maw and cheeks. So I'm going to just read to you quick what Brother Raymond had sent me. And he said it is written shoulder in English, but in Aramaic, so he covered the shoulder too. He covered all aspects of what was written in Deuteronomy 18. But in Aramaic, the word for shoulder is not used, which is usa. The word that is used, so meaning in English, is not to shoulder, something that is more complex, is for both the shank and the shoulder, which is also interpreted as arm. So you're talking from the shoulder or the shoulder bone all the way down to the elbow of the leg. That is the shank and the shoulder. That's combined, the whole thing. So in a cow or a bovine, that's a big, heavy piece, especially an adult. That's a pretty heavy piece of meat there. And I can see where the priest would definitely get a full meal deal off of that. For the English word cheeks, so Brother Raymond just sent me about breaking down shoulder. Now he's going on to cheeks. In Aramaic is tazana. And Brother Raymond, you said you were going to listen, so if brother, I'm sorry if I'm butchering up the Aramaic. I'm trying my best, man. Elder Doug does not do the best when it comes to pronunciation with these big old long words, like more than 5 letters. So, hey, just hang tough with me, Brother Raymond. Love you, my brother. Anyway, Aramaic, it is Tanzna. And he really didn't say anything more about that, but he goes down to ma. Ma is Old English, and it's also called mawa or maga. And he says, looking this word ma up in the Old English is very similar to what we today call stomach in modern Swedish, which is mage, which is M-A-G-E. Now, in Aramaic, the word that is used is kisa, which means stomach, belly, or abdomen. So in the Aramaic, it means actually the whole of the abdomen, everything that's contained inside of the abdomen. And the English word call, because I also asked them to look at that word too in addition to these words. The English word call is used in Leviticus 3, chapter 3, verse 4, chapter 3, verse 15, chapter 7, verse 4, chapter 8, verse 16, chapter 8, verse 25, and more, because there's a lot of places that the word call is used. And the Aramaic word that is used in these passages is kodah, and it means membrane or peritoneum. The word is related to another word that is similar in meaning, which I want to point out that it is not in the passages, but like I said, it is related to the word above, meaning the word kodah. And that word is slitha, which means placenta, the membrane covering the fetus. So when you're looking at the word call, we're going to get into it. We haven't got there yet, but he included, so I just read it, that call, when it talks about the lobes, these are things that are all going to be used in the sacrifice. They're in the internal organs. And some people, if you look behind the word call and get everybody's definition of their understanding what it might be, some say it's a part of the liver. Some say it's the membrane that covers around the liver. So if you look at Brother Raymond's definition, to me it says that it's the membrane that covers or goes around the liver, but not the liver itself. That's the key thing, is not the liver itself. All right, Numbers 18:8, continuing on. I believe we're still continuing on. Yes. We went through 2 through 5, and now we're jumping down to verse 8 through 10. And the Most High spake unto Aaron, Behold, I also have given thee the charge of mine heave offerings of the hallowed things of the children of Israel. Unto thee have I given them by the reason of the anointing, and to thy sons by an ordinance forever. Verse 9, This shall be thine of the most holy things, reserved from the fire, meaning that reserve was added into a bit, into the context of the text, but it means kept back. From the fire, from the burnt offering, every oblation of theirs belonging to the priesthood. Again, we talked about that earlier, and this is reaffirming that this is what is their due. Every meat offering of theirs, and every sin offering of theirs, and every trespass offering of theirs, which they shall render unto me, shall be most holy for thee and thy sons. So it's initially dedicated in the Most High, but this is the part that the priesthood gets to keep out, meaning the shoulder, the cheeks, and the maw. In the most holy place thou shalt eat it, every male shall eat it, it shall be holy unto thee. And when it talks about the cheek, if you look, the general consensus is that it's not only, it's the head of the animal, all right, the head of the whatever it is that's being sacrificed, unless it's a burnt offering. And believe me, I went through all the offering types. There's 5 major offerings or sacrifices, and they all have a little bit of difference in how they're performed. But when it comes to the burnt offering, especially of bullocks or bulls or oxen or bovines, that the whole thing, except which is dedicated strictly to the burnt sacrifice, the rest of it, including the head, is brought outside the camp, and it's burnt with fire, including the dung and the inwards and the rest of the stuff. Okay, well, that's for another. If you want to get into it, have fun, but it's pretty lengthy. But staying focused on the study, we're talking about eating internal organs. All right. So anyway, these things were reserved for the Levites. Now we're going to go on to the kidneys, the caul, above the liver, and the intestinal fat, trying to break that down a little bit. Oh, excuse me. I believe that after we have concluded the examination of this area of this study, that body parts such as the kidneys, the caul, the liver, the intestinal fat are those parts which Yahweh commanded to be added to certain offerings as a sweet-smelling savor unto him, were those items which Yahweh appears to have selected as being delectable to him. And the reason I had to bring this up in the beginning of this before I read this, because I hope I don't repeat it again, but there are those, if you read, when I do a study like this, I like to hear what other people have to say. I don't mean that I actually accept it, but sometimes there's something, definitely things that I've missed that make sense that I want to add to my study. So one of the things was, reading through this, people actually had the nerve to say that these things that were, because you're supposed to give Yahweh the best of whatever it is, the best of your offerings. And the Bible makes that clear. The best of your grain offerings, your tithes, your first fruits, and of your animals. They have to be without blemish. But people actually say, because they're anti-internal organs or anti-body cavity, whatever, being the whole thing is clean, that they'll actually say that Yah got the less desirable parts like the kidneys and the caul because of what the function is. But why would he say specifically, I want these parts? If you understand what I'm saying, if they're so raunchy, you give the best, Lord. I mean, he's already telling them, these are the parts I want specifically. These are for me. You can't have them. I want them because the best, I deserve the best. And that's the way that I appeared in, or the way that I take all these things talking about the caul, the kidneys, and the liver. And again, I'm jumping around, but I have to do this, conserve time, because I'll never get through this thing. All right, Leviticus chapter 3, verses 1 through, and we're only going to cover this in part, but I think you understand what I'm saying. 1 through 11. And this is talking about the peace offerings. This is talking about how Yah gave it to Moses to tell the priesthood and the people, this is what's required. Remember, on the different offerings, whatever the offering was, or the peace offering, grain offering, burnt offering, sin offering, there was like 5 of them. I don't remember all right now, but in each specific offering, certain parts were split 3 ways. Certain parts were only for Yah. Certain parts were given to Yah and the priesthood. So it all depends on what it was and the importance of it was. But here we have the peace offering. And during the peace offering, I'm going to jump down to verse 4 to save some time. Leviticus 3, verse 4. And the 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them, which is by the flanks, and the caul above the lid and kidneys, he shall take away. Meaning the priest is going to reserve these things, pull these things out specifically, and in verse 5 is going to tell you why. And Aaron and his son shall burn it upon the altar, upon the burnt sacrifice, which is upon the wood that is on the fire. It is an offering made by Yah of a sweet savor unto the Most High. So if this stuff was so intrusive and so spurned or looked at today in the Western culture, why in the world would Yah actually say, I want this stuff because it's a sweet-smelling savor unto me? I really want, this is the stuff I want offered up unto me because there's something about it that I want first and foremost, because the best offering. I hope you understand what I'm saying, but that is what it is. So we get these people saying that, this stuff is the least of all the stuff in the internal organ. It filters out the blood. It does whatever. I'm skipping way ahead of my study, but anyway, trying to make a point that if this stuff is so nasty, why would Yah say this is the stuff that belongs to me? You understand what I'm saying, right? So I'm going to skip over most of Leviticus chapter 3, but on verse 11, it said, and the priest shall burn it upon the altar. It is the food of the offering made by fire unto the Most High, saying it belongs to Yah, and it's for his food. It's actually, he's not going to physically eat it, but it's offered up to him as food. So if it's offered to him as food, and he views it as something that he would eat if he was in a human form, then so much more the Israelites. But we'll get to that too. All right. Let me see. And I kind of covered that anyway. So what I want to do is say, the fact is that toxins, once filtered, because I made the point earlier to say that people say this ain't no way can be given, it's forbidden. The people can't have it because these are the least desirable parts, and also forbidden because it was just for Yahweh. Well, in a certain aspect, it was only pertaining to the sacrifice. But when it comes to that, if you really want to get technical, there's a lot of parts in the body that filter things that are used for getting rid of toxins. I mean, your lungs, when you inhale, they take carbon monoxide or monoxide. Is it monoxide or dioxide? I don't remember. But they convert the oxygen and they filter out the bad air in what you take in your lungs, and they dispel it from the body so it doesn't hurt you. That's their job. It's a filtering agent, just like the liver is, just like the kidneys are. Even the brain has a certain amount of things that it's supposed to filter. But the fact of the matter is, if kidneys are off limits because of the performance of in the body is, why wouldn't the liver be up? But Yah never said anything about the liver being off. He didn't command it to be offered up but as a burnt offering. And if it was so bad for everybody, they didn't want anybody else to have it, and it was forbidden, so why didn't he include it in the offerings? When that liver is probably the most influential organ in the body besides the heart. It is the largest organ in the human body. I don't know about animals, but when I butchered, I lost count of how many deer I've actually butchered over the years, or actually gutted. So 200, 300, 400, I don't know what it is, but the liver is the biggest organ, and the lungs are pretty close behind it as a second. But the fact that they do filter out the toxins, but they don't retain the toxins. The toxins go out of the body. They're just a filtering agent. They're clean otherwise and by themselves. All right, now jumping all over the study, try to get done. I'm way ahead of myself, but anyway, let's go and see that. Jump down to this. Okay, now we're going to go, are clean animals considered completely clean or just certain parts? Anyway, there's going to be a newsletter written about this, so you can go back and look through the newsletter, and it'll be very thorough. I promise you that, because obviously in my studies, I like to let them speak for themselves. I don't want to add a lot. I like to, let scripture upon scripture, line upon line. So you can go back and see better in context what I was talking about, just for the sake of time. So we're going to go into the clean animal, the dietary laws that are given to Israel, specifically Leviticus chapter 11, Deuteronomy 14, and we're going to talk about the beasts that are in there. And my point is are these animals, when Yah prescribes them as clean, are they completely clean or just certain parts? So when he prescribes them as unclean, are they completely unclean or just certain parts? You see the dichotomy here? All right, Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 2. And we're not going to read the whole thing, but we're going to just kind of paraphrase everything to save time here. Like I said, this could turn into a 3-hour study, and it's not necessary to do so. If you get what I'm understanding, I hope you do. You can email me at elderbecker777@yahoo.com if you don't, if I'm going too fast or something. But you can let me know about your comments after the fact. All right. But in the Torah, talking about dietary laws, the book of Deuteronomy chapter 14, and pretty much through the end of it, verse 20, covers what is acceptable for Israelites to eat. As Israelites that are listening right now already perfectly well know, you're very well versed, because those listening definitely want to keep the commandments of the Most High and be obedient to His ways. So we have all these things, and every case in point, when it talks about in the starting of Deuteronomy 14, it's talking about those things on 4 legs, and that chew the cud and part the hoof. These are definitely clean. So that includes everything that's deer and cows and goats and sheep and all that stuff. We already know that, right? So the point is these completely clean or only partially clean? Are they clean every whit from the inside, from the outside of the animal all the way to the inside? Or are the prohibited parts of them? Of course, we know one of the prohibitions is blood, flat out blood, all right, and fats of certain animals, which to me are only the ceremonial mentioned animals, all right? And if you're posting, brother, anybody on there? All right, because I cannot see the chat board between my glasses, which are bifocals, and I forget it. Anyway, y'all are going to have to trust me. So we touch on right away Deuteronomy 14. It starts with the 4-legged animals, and then it goes down to break down the ones that you can't. So if these are the ones that are unclean, like the coney or the rabbit or the camel or the hare, they're unclean all the way through. That's the point I'm trying to make. You can't distinguish and say, well, it's unclean, but there's certain parts of it that are clean. That's like taking a clean animal and saying there's certain parts of it unclean. I think I'm making my point. I really do. It goes down to talk about the fish. Again, in the dietary laws, it's covering everything. And then it goes on and talks about the birds. And in both accounts, it's talking about and all the birds. All right. So which ones are you gonna stand up and say, well, Yah said it's clean through and through, but you're gonna tell me that parts of it are unclean? No, I don't buy that. If it's either unclean or clean, there's no designation. You can't start what do they call that? Anyway, whatever the metaphor is for it, I forget right now. But that's the point I'm trying to make. So in Deuteronomy 14, In Leviticus 11, you had the same verbiage as talking about and the same layout and context of what is considered clean and not clean. And my point again is Yah said it's clean, so it's clean through and through. If it's unclean through and through. There's no digression. There's complete clarity to me when I read it, right? So jumping down and going past these other ones, again, you can read through each one of them and say, Yah says it's unclean, well, damn it, it's unclean. Yah says it's clean, so damn it, it's clean. But this is the part I want to get to. So Leviticus chapter 11, I have to read this. This is very important to me. Leviticus chapter 11, I'm going to bring out a point here. We're starting at verse 20. So, Brother Ugly, if you can post Leviticus chapter 11, verse 20, and go through verse 23. Just common sense stuff I'm going to present for you. Alrighty, verse 20. And all fowls that creep going upon all four shall be an abomination unto you. Oh my God, what was I thinking earlier? Help me, Jesus. Yet these may you eat of every flying creeping that goeth upon all four, which have the legs above their feet to leap withal upon them. So it's breaking down which is clean to you. They creep it above. They're flying things, and they go about on all fours, and they can leap with their feet, and they do it all over the place, right? So we know them to be things like locusts and grasshoppers and beetles. So in verse 22, in the Torah, Yah is breaking it down for Moshe to give to the people again. Even these of them you may eat, talking about the insect life. You have the locust after his kind, and the bald locust after his kind, and the beetle after his kind, and the grasshopper after his kind. So we have four categories of animals, which are pretty broad in the insect world, right? They cover a great gamut of things. So my point is, in verse 23, but all other flying, creeping things which have 4 feet shall be an abomination unto you. So it's case specific again, which one are acceptable, and that is the locust, the bald locust, the beetle, and the grasshoppers. And you can go down and you can define after his kind if you want. I didn't do it for the study, but the point I was trying to make. Now the Bible says that John the Baptist was in the wilderness and his diet consisted of honey and locust. I think we're all in agreement with that, right? Everybody that is an Israelite knows, even if they're not an Israelite, they know the word, that they know that's what it says in the renewed covenant, that John was out in the wilderness and he ate locust and honey. This is my point now. So if we were so bent on that you can't eat the internal organs, and that means John, who knew the Torah and the law, should have, just by context, based on the understanding we have today of a lot of people, that he should have taken every one of them locusts and gutted the damn thing. He should have taken a little scalpel, cut it open, and removed the internal organs so he didn't transgress the law. You understand? He should have tore off the abdomen. But when he ate it, that's ridiculous. It's totally retarded. So, but again, the point was these were labeled clean by the Most High, the entirety of the animal. And I guarantee you, when John popped that baby in his mouth, he ate the whole thing, even with the dung inside of it, with the heart and liver, whatever organs these animals had in them. They were the inwards or the pertinence inside these insects. I hope I'm making sense, because you can't distinguish. You get a four-legged animal, all of a sudden there's certain parts of it that you can't touch outside the blood and certain fats of domesticated animals. And then you come down here to the insect life. Also, oh my God, you can't eat that. No, you can't eat it. Excuse me. All of a sudden, except, in fact, in the early years of the community here, Pastor Dowell, those of you that are new and those you may have heard this before, but I would say for the first 9 to 10 years, at least, maybe up until 2008, when Diane and I got in a wreck and there was too many distractions. But from 98 up until that time, for 10 years, Pastor Dowell faithfully, by the leading of the Most High, preached to us, and we call it dining hall preaching, the raw stuff, right? The stuff that really touched your character. And that was because we ate twice a day in the dining hall. Even on Shabbat, we ate once, but every other day was twice a day, breakfast and dinner. And he would preach every time. And then one time during one of his preachings, he talked about when perilous times would come, when the time of tribulation, and that, some of you people are so defined and so refined that you won't be you'll starve to death, because I don't think, are you ready to eat a locust? Are you ready to eat a beetle? Are you ready to eat a grasshopper? Is it in you? So the next morning, he put it out there in a supper meal, an evening meal. And the next morning, because as Straitway, as a community, we got up every morning in the summer at first light, and we got out to the garden as a community, and we all had little paper, or we had Walmart, the plastic Walmart bags, whatever, bowls, whatever. And we had to deal with Japanese beetles and cutworms, wherever, to preserve our crops. So we'd all be out there walking the rows or whatever it was, and we'd be knocking these insects off of the plants, put them in the bag, or then later on give them to chicken, recycle them. But the challenge was there. So if you think, that we'll see if you can actually eat one of these when the time comes. So we actually had some brethren and sisters that actually ate these things whole. They stuck the whole live the June bug in their mouth, chomp, 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 ate it, guts and all, right, and swallowed it. And, the comment was, well, it wasn't that bad, but I sure ain't going to do it again. What it came to me is like, no, I'll wait till that time comes. So sorry, I'm just telling on myself, but hey, I'll take what's cooked over the stove for right now because I don't have to resort to eating a locust. But anyway, the fact of the matter is we would have been in defilement right back then and there and breaking out of Torah, eating that June bug. Hey, and I'll just give a shout out to my wife, Diane. She was one of the troopers that did. She outdid her husband, man. She grabbed that old little June bug and chucked that baby and ate it. But you can have it. I'm glad she brushes her teeth. Bless you, honey. Anyway, Corey King. But that's the point I'm trying to make about the clean animals. They're clean throughout. The unclean, they're unclean throughout. I hope I'm making sense. So, yeah, Brother Ugly, cherry picking. You got that right. I had to put my glass on to read the chat, but anyway. That goes down to that. So skipping ahead, we're going to go to tribal diet and allowances. So I think you pretty much so far through the context of what we talked about, that blood is completely prohibited, and except in insects. It's not written about, it's just talking about fish, fowl, and animals. And fat is prohibited in ceremony of sacrificial animals as oxen or cows and sheep and goats, and that even remains till the day because of Perpetual commandments. So we know what we can't eat. So that tells me everything else is allowable. So, tribal diet and allowances. Deuteronomy 12, verses 10 through, that's a big one. Deuteronomy 12, 10 through, oh, God, this is like 3 sheets long here. 10 through 29. And I think I'm going to have to paraphrase for sake of time. And you can go back and read it, okay? But what we have here is that, if I can remember it in context, I might have to look at it too, is the fact that there was something given to Moshe again to relate to the people, and when it had to do with when you come into your land, which Yahweh gave the land of Canaan. When it come to that time, there's going to be sides, because remember, every tribe had their own priest with them in the land that was theirs within their borders. So whenever it was that time, do that time in the place that Yahweh the Elohim commanded that Israel go to, and I'm assuming this is during the feast, but it could have been for other things. And of course it had to be for other things. I think about it now because of sacrifices were still required in offerings throughout the entire scope of the year, the spectrum of the year, even more so on the feast days, as we can read about later on, but we're not going to get, again, this is about consuming internal organs. So he's talking about when you get in the land, and then you're going to have specifically those offerings which you're going to throw out when it comes time to offer up your tithes and your first fruits and your animals for the offerings. These things are already set apart for me. But while you're in your gates, within your dwellings, whether you're able to make it to the place which I command you to have these offerings and sacrifices, or whether you're not. Again, go ahead and read Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 10. You can write it down, 10 through 29, and you'll see what I'm talking about. What time is it? I might cover a little bit. I got a little bit of time. If I go over 2 hour mark a little bit, I think I need to cover this a little bit. Let me see here. Unbelievable. Somebody just sends me a polo during blog talk. Oh, well, it happens. Anyway, okay, so we have a case verses Deuteronomy 12, verses 10 through 14. So in 10 through 14, Yahweh is declaring by the mouth of Moshe the order of the offerings and tithes due to the priesthood in the place which he shall choose, being that all the things offered up were to be done in the place where Yahweh chooses. In fact, it was so important that Israel understood this. Moshe in verse 13, if you go back and read this, in verse 13 of Deuteronomy 12 said, "Take heed to thyself that thou offer not thy burnt offerings in every place that thou seest," meaning that Yahweh is case specific. I want you to go right back to that place. I don't want you to just pick a spot and do what you're going to do, because this requires something that I want you actually to show up and present the stuff that you said you were going to present for the offerings, right? And so verses 15 and this is the key verse, Deuteronomy 12, verse 15. All right, this one I need to read. And I hope I'm not losing anybody, and my apologies if I am. But it says, "Notwithstanding, thou mayest kill and eat flesh in all thy gates, whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, according to the blessing of Yahweh Elohim which he hath given thee. The unclean and clean may eat thereof, as of the roebuck and of the hart." So here we have a couple of things working. Now, if you're familiar with a lot of these bullcrap Christian doctrines that say that they use Deuteronomy 12:15 as a case that you can eat anything, and they're looking at the master that Yahweh the Elohim which have given thee, the unclean and clean may eat thereof. No, he's talking about the people. So if the people were in a state where they were unclean, either leprosy or a woman in purification, she still had the same privilege to eat whatever thou desirest in thy gates, not the stuff that was meant for the sacrifices. And then here it makes a key statement, as of the roebuck and of the hart. All right, meaning that you have the ability outside of the sacrifices to consume whatever part of the animal that you wanted to, outside of the blood and of the domesticated animal, the fats, right? The certain fats that were, Yahweh said was his, of them beasts. Now, when I'm reading through this, because I see in here after the great deal of study that because Yahweh targeted only the domesticated animals meant for ceremonial sacrifices as concerning the fat consumption, he never said it about the fowls, he never said it about the fish, he never said it about the wild animals. So as far as I'm concerned, you can use your own as it comes just to the fat now. When it comes to deer, right, I believe that is perfectly fine and acceptable and lawful to go ahead and eat the fats found in deer meat, or any other animals not prescribed four-legged animals that have to do with ceremonial sacrificial offerings. Even though they're done away with, there's still a perpetual forever for breaking this down. And so what it says in Deuteronomy is that whether you can make the feast or whether you can't make the feast, or the place where Yahweh commanded you to make these sacrifices, these were preserved specifically for that. But while you were in your gates and in your homes and in your houses, whatever you desire to eat, you could just go ahead and consume any part of it outside of the blood and certain fats belonging to them, certain animals, if I'm making sense. It's going to be in the newsletter. That's why I'm not really getting down on it right now. I'm just trying to make you to see what I'm talking about right here. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And again, it's the things that were vowed, that were set apart, that had without blemish. Because you understand, when they traveled to these places, it says in both ways that if you can't make it, sell what you got, take the money, then go there and buy from somebody else the things that you can go ahead and eat within your gates, right? And you consume the whole thing. I mean, have fun at it. Liver, heart, whatever you want, the brains, the cheeks, because it wasn't set apart for the sacrifice. But the things that were set apart for the sacrifice, of course, that whole animal was presented to the priesthood. He took care of it. It was a peace offering. You got a piece of it back. If it was something else offering, it went between the priest and the Most High. And if it was just like a burnt offering, the whole thing went to Yahweh. Okay, so you didn't get nothing back. But the fact is, while you were still in there, it makes the comparison. as of the roebuck and the hart, meaning that you would eat them unrestricted a certain way, and these animals that were in your gates were allowed to be unrestricted, meaning you could eat all the heart you wanted, all the kidney you wanted, all the intestines you wanted, all the stomach linings you wanted, the maw, the cheeks, everything the animal was consumable, if that makes sense, if it wasn't venerated or set apart for the ceremonial sacrifice. Jesus, I hope I'm making sense. Anyway, let's see. Hey, I even got ahead of myself. But that is a quick conclusion to the study. I mean, it was like 27 pages, so I really knocked it down again. I would have been going till 2.5 hours. So my conclusion, I think you pretty much heard it, is that the abstinence of all blood is paramount. Never, ever. That belongs to Yahweh. It always had. He made that a point right from the very beginning. And when we were first read about it in Noah. Now, the fats on certain animals of oxen, or as we know, cows today, of sheep of any variety, and of goats of any variety, that fat that comes off them animals belongs to Yahweh. So if you go to a restaurant and you order, like I said earlier, a T-bone steak or a prime rib, if you're a beef eater, if you want to get your your sheep portion, you want to get, I don't know how many restaurants have goat cuts in it, but the fact that the fat on that trims away, that belongs to Yah. All right, that's his. But if you go there and order a piece of venison and it has a piece of fat on it, my conclusion is that it's perfectly acceptable to consume. I'll leave that up to you when it comes to the fats. As it comes to the internal organs, definitely they are allowable and completely lawful for you to consume, whether it be the stomachs or they call it tripe. The stomach linings, they call it tripe. We've seen clearly in the study that the priests were actually given and commanded to be given the maw or the stomachs. And in some circles, if you read about, they say that a cow has 4 stomachs. It may go someplace. It's actually up to the 3rd stomach because the 4th one contains the more of the excrement and the other stuff that isn't too tasty sounding. Now, you don't have to eat it. I mean, if it's not palatable to you, if you don't like the sound of it, don't eat it. I grew up in a place where we hunted a lot, and so when we took our animals, we ate. I mean, deer liver to us was that was a delicacy. That was a big thing. If somebody would shoot a deer, we'd take the liver. Our folks, my mom and dad, they always had cow liver, cow heart. Simply because when you feed a family that big, it was cheaper, and it was practical to actually make ends meet. But if you do the research into organs, you'll find out that, like they call liver a superfood. Now again, liver and kidneys, them two specifically, do not collect toxins. The toxins do not stay in the liver or the kidneys. They're actually filtered through them, but then they're dumped and dispersed out of the body. In fact, what you want to avoid in animals, like in fish, when I eat fish, when I used to fillet fish, I would actually cut the belly meat out because toxins deposited in the fatty tissues in the fish. That's where most of the toxins go. They don't remain in the internal organs. They're deposited either through you peeing or pooping, whatever the case may be, but they don't stay in there. So again, this is not telling you that you have to or whatever the case may be. That's totally your choice. I kind of reflect back in Romans 14 that one man esteem eating internal organs is fine, the other one not. So don't. If you don't want to, don't. But I mean, chicken gizzards, I got them in my freezer at home. I like chicken gizzards. I like them pickled. I like them this way, that other way. There's other arguments that you can have, but the context was about, is internal organs and the inwards of animals acceptable? Yes, I believe they are. And I hopefully that I have concluded in the study that they are lawful and all right for Israelites to go ahead and eat. Anyway, I mean, that is about the end of the study. So, hey, Elder Becker, 777 at yahoo.com. If you got any comments, go ahead and ship them to me. So send them to me in an email. But I appreciate y'all joining me tonight. I really do. I hope I didn't get too crazy with the study. There was a lot of crazy events going on with the board and all the other stuff, but stuff like that happens. Anyway, I hope you all encouraged. Again, the Feast of Pentecost is coming up, and that's when we know that Yahweh in the upper room poured out the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and also in Mount Sinai when they received the law. So, again, hey, pray for one another. Pray for the leadership. Pray for our shepherd, Pastor Dowell, continually. Pastor Corey, the elders, the leadership, for each other. That we may be well and healed, and be strong and united as a people. So anyway, that is the conclusion of the study tonight. I do appreciate you again all joining in and be long-suffering with me and my studies. I did try. Hey, I had a little lax. Normally, I've been trying to slow it down. As my Isha has been telling me, slow it down a little bit so people can hear. But tonight it was a little bit different, so I had to speed it up a bit. But anyway, love y'all. And again, I hope you'll be looking for the newsletter. Hopefully, it'll be out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then you can take your merry old time and look at it as best you can. So anyway, bless y'all, Israel. You have a blessed week, and be encouraged. The King is coming.
Uh-oh, look at him looking.